Okay, we are recording. We are live. All righty. Welcome to BIMS TV. I'm Dr. Tiara Moore, founder and CEO of Black and Marine Science. And today I am so excited to be having a conversation with Dr. Dawn Wright about her upcoming journey to the Challenger Deep. The Challenger Deep, y'all, the deepest point of the ocean. I'm joined today with Dr. Camille Gaynus, who is the chair of the BIMS board, and she'll be helping to moderate today's chat. Camille, can you please go ahead and introduce Dr. Wright?
I sure can. Dr. Dawn Wright is Chief Scientist of the Environmental System Research Institute, aka ESRI, a world-leading geographic information system, software, and data science company. As Chief Scientist, Dawn is responsible for strengthening the scientific foundation for ESRI software and services, while representing ESRI to the international scientific community. As such, she has served on many advisory boards, and I'm so excited to say that in April of 2021, she was elected to both the National Academy of Sciences and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Yes, Dawn, yes, giving you your flowers. Please, please, please be sure to follow Dr. Wright on Twitter at Deep Sea Dawn and on Instagram. Alrighty, with that, let's get started. We have some questions, and T, I think you can start us off with a question, and then we'll kind of go back and forth.
So like I said, we'll be talking about your journey, but everybody wants to know, how did you get here? Tell us about your background. How did you get to this place?
Well, now I'm recalling a BIMS talk that we had before, which has some of those details as well, and that was so much fun. So I hope your viewers will take a look at that. But in a nutshell, I was trained as a geologist, and I started off getting into geology in the 1980s because I'm old. I've been around for a while. So I love following everything that all of you are doing in your generation, and how strong and powerful and determined and supportive you are. I didn't have any of that. There was no BIMS when I started in the 1980s, and I got into geology specifically to become a marine geologist, a geological oceanographer. I was fascinated with volcanoes and lava flows from my background in Hawaii. I was raised on Maui, Hawaii. And my mom started the speech program at Maui Community College. My father was a basketball coach. We were the first black family to live on Maui, as far as we know. So it was a very, very interesting, fascinating childhood. I did not grow up in a black community. I grew up in a mixture of communities, mainly Asian communities. But still, and I'm going to mention this because this is very important, an important part of my story. This was during the 60s, civil rights movement. We were watching all of the craziness go on the mainland, as we say, from Hawaii. I was getting bullied in school. There were no other black people, but I think what they were seeing on TV, they were translating to us and my family. And I got bullied for a little while in school. But all of that, they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think a lot of us have that in our stories. My journey to becoming an oceanographer was a singular journey. I did not see others who were like me. I took my strength and my inspiration from black scientists in other fields, such as Dr. Mae Jemison. When she went into space, I think that blew all of us away, and that so inspired me. At the same time, I had so many wonderful peers and mentors who they didn't look like me, but they were all accepting. They were wonderful. They were everything that I needed in order to get through the bachelor degree in geology and then the master degree in geological oceanography from Texas A&M, and then 3 years at sea as a technician, marine technician, aboard the Joydes Resolution, which is still sailing, by the way. The Joydes Resolution is currently in the Atlantic and sailing now with a much more diverse crew and much more diverse science staff, and even science communicators who sail along on those 2-month-long expeditions to communicate the science that's going on in the ship. I had 10 of those cruises or expeditions as a marine technician, so that was around 3 years at sea, not continuously, 2 months on, 2 months off, but it was a long time at sea. And then moving on to UC Santa Barbara for a PhD in marine geology and physical geography, and that's where I became a geographer as well, and finished up that time at UCSB. Had a fantastic experience there, and took my first submersible dive. I think it was in 1991 or 1992, and that it turned out that was the first dive in Alvin by a black woman scientist. Evan Ford was the first black person to dive in a research submersible, including Alvin. And when I descend to Challenger Deep next month, I'm going to be dedicating my dive in part to Dr. Ford. I will be wearing a BIMS keychain on my jumpsuit, and it's going to be a fantastic experience. At any rate, my first experience in a submersible was back then in the 1990s. And from UCSB, I went on to a short postdoc at NOAA, the NOAA Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory in Newport, Oregon. And from there, it was a very short postdoc of only around 8 months. And from there, I went on to a tenure track faculty position at Oregon State University, and was there for 17 years, teaching geography, oceanography, having a wonderful group of students. My research lab was called Davy Jones Locker because it was all about mapping the ocean floor, and all of the workstations in my lab had pirate names. We had a lot of fun back in those days. I did a radical transformation, racial equity, diversity, equity, inclusion seminar for Oregon State a couple of months ago, and I told them about my experience at Oregon State, which was up and down in terms of acceptance and treatment, and the people who go up into space talk about the overview effect in terms of what you see when you're looking out the window and looking at the curvature of the Earth and the totality of the Earth. I don't know if anyone else uses this term in terms of faculty of color who are at major institutions, but for me it was like an overview effect where I could see the totality of what I was trying to accomplish, just trying to get tenure, and seeing the landscape of the faculty and the students, the administration, the campus, and realizing that I was going to have to work 150% to everyone else's 100% in order to get through and to be accepted, to forge new research areas, especially in a department that was blended between geography and geology. And this time I was on the geography side, which was frankly looked down upon by the geologists in that department. So there were a lot of interesting dynamics, but it all happened. In fact, I got tenure in 4 years instead of 6. I kind of overdid it, but we got it done. We got it done, as all of you are getting it done. And that was a wonderful time at Oregon State, where I also was able to build a program in geographic information science and taught a lot of courses in that area, worked a lot with geographic information systems technology, GIS, which has become a critical research tool for people who are studying not just the ocean floor, but for all aspects of the ocean. It's a critical tool that's used for marine conservation, and especially for the designation of marine protected areas. And so what we call marine GIS or ocean GIS is my thing. And throughout the time of teaching, I was working a lot with Esri technology. And around 2010, Esri came knocking and asked if I would consider being their chief scientist. And so after working through some issues, I was able to join Esri in 2011 as their chief scientist. The secret is that I was going to go back to Oregon State after 2 years. I was able to get a 2-year sabbatical instead of a 1-year sabbatical. But that's another story, another long story. At any rate, I'm still I'm still on the Oregon State faculty, but I no longer have the tenure and the lab. I'm a courtesy faculty member now, and I'm full time with Esri. I've been with Esri for since 2011, and as chief scientist, I help us to support the scientific community, which includes the ocean science community, and this brings us full circle around to Caladan Oceanic, which is the organization that I'll be traveling with and working with when we go to Challenger Deep, because Caladan Oceanic uses our technology to do their multi-beam bathymetric mapping from their ship, because as they go from point to point for their primary objective, which is to make these record-setting dives in the limiting factor submersible, they also gather multi-beam data in transit, and they gather other kinds of water column data, and they use Esri technology for part of that, and they give out their data freely. And part of what they're doing is contributing to the Seabed 2030 mapping effort, which is the quest to map the entire world ocean floor in the detail we need for the ocean that we want, for a healthy ocean, for a functional ocean by 2030. So to make a long story short, we've had a nice relationship with Caladan Oceanic. They asked us to support their dive with Kathy Sullivan, who many of us know as the first American woman to walk in space. She was also the administrator of NOAA, and she took a dive in 2020 in the limiting factor to Challenger Deep, making her the most vertical person in the universe, because she became the first and is still the only person to walk in space and then dive to Challenger Deep. So that whole vertical spectrum. We Esri could not participate at sea because we were locked down for the pandemic, but we got to know Esri and Caladan and Victor Vescovo, who is the amazing explorer who runs that whole operation, he is the founder and CEO of Caladan from his personal wealth, and he owns the pressure drop, which is the ship that tenders the limiting factor, which is the submersible. And he went to Triton Submarines and commissioned the limiting factor. So the limiting factor is very special. It is built specifically to be a repeatable use, all-purpose, full ocean depth submersible to descend to Challenger Deep, and of course other deep places in the ocean. So one of the things that Victor and his company have done is they've gone to what they call the 5 deeps, which are the 5 deepest spots in all 5 of the world's major oceans. And of course, Challenger Deep is the spot for the Pacific, but they've also taken a dive to Horizon Deep on the Tonga Trench, or in the Tonga Trench, which I'm familiar with because I co-led a mapping expedition to map Horizon Deep from a ship with multi-beam sonar. Anyway, we've gotten to know each other, and Esri's Story Maps team did a wonderful series of story maps about Kathy Sullivan's descent and about Caladan Oceanic as an organization, and would love to share those. I'll have a list of things that I can give you that you can share with your viewers in terms of links. And then Victor and I got to know each other a little bit through that. And A little while later, he asked me to join an expedition and to take a dive with him to Challenger Deep. I think drawing on my expertise as a marine geologist and taking a look at the geology of that area. But also, Victor has been wonderful. You know, he took Kathy Sullivan down. He took Don Walsh's son. That you know, Don Walsh and Jacques Picard are the first two humans to descend into Challenger Deep, and they did that in 1960. And so Victor took Don's son down a couple of years ago. He's taken down Nicole Yamase, who is the first Micronesian scientist. And Challenger Deep is within the Federated States of Micronesia. And so she is the first Micronesian, Polynesian woman to descend to Challenger Deep. And she also just completed her PhD at the University of Hawaii in oceanography. And I'm so excited to meet her because she will be on this expedition and will watch and will I think support me and let me know what kinds of give me some tips since I'll be making my dive. He's taken down several other women, but he wants to take me down as the first Black person into Challenger Deep, and so that is a wonderful wonderful milestone. I'm very, very proud to do it and very proud to share this experience and the inspiration, certainly with BIMS and with anyone who will listen, who will follow our expedition. Because with the war in Ukraine and inflation and gas prices, even thinking about climate change has been hard for some folks. And this is part of the climate change story of the planet. So I've been talking for a long time. I think I'll let you ask another question. But thank you. That's the story. That's the background.
That is so interesting, Dawn, that you made a lot of analogies and just what you were saying to space. And when I think about the deep sea, when I think even about how you get down to Challenger Deep, right? I feel as though there's so many overlaps between how astronauts, Dr. May, how she might have prepared for her excursions to space. And I just would like you to talk a little bit about like how you've prepared for that, how, when you're getting in, I think you said the name, the limiting or the limiter in terms of the
Yes, it's called the limiting factor. I think Victor has named his ship and his submersible and other items after science fiction characters in science. He's into science fiction. So anyway, it's the limiting factor and the way that the submersible is designed and built. They including the sphere itself. A perfect sphere, I think, to 1/100th of an inch or something like that, because the geometry of the sphere is the most important for standing up against the tremendous pressures that we're going to experience. I think someone described it as the equivalent of, well, technically we'll be at 16,000 pounds per square inch at that depth of over 10,000 meters, or that's about 1,100 atmospheres. So it's the perfect sphere that can withstand that the best. And so that's part of the design of the limiting factor. But in terms of, now going to space is a lot harder. and as we know, those of us who do field work as oceanographers, you have to be fit and you have to have some experience, but the intense training that oceanographers that the astronauts go through is different. So that I don't have to worry about that. But one of the things I think that's interesting, and for all of us who do work at sea, that's something to be respected. And in terms of the pressure drop, the ship has 5 decks that are connected by some pretty steep internal and external stairwells and handrails. And so there's no elevator, so you have to be fit enough to negotiate those stairs, ladders to move around the ship. And I've been training for that. I mean, that's part of being able to go down into the submersible, is to be able to navigate yourself and to have the upper body fitness required to open and close the steel waterproof hatches that are throughout the ship. So I've been working out with a personal trainer, and I really enjoy cycling. So I've been doing a lot of cycling to work on my cardiovascular and my leg strength. And then to get into the limiting factor is also very interesting, because compared to other submersibles, with others, like my experience with Alvin and with Pisces, the submersible is on the stern of the ship, so it's already it's steady on the ship, and you get into the submersible, you get comfortable, and then you are lifted off of the deck and out over into the water. But with the limiting factor, you have to have a little bit more, I think, flexibility and scrambling ability, climbing ability, because the way they're designed, the pressure drop and the limiting factor, they're not permitted to launch the limiting factor from the deck with the occupants already inside. So the submersible is going to be craned into a position over the water before we get in. So we have to be able to step onto the limiting factor's very tiny little surface area from a short gangway that's attached to the ship. And of course, we'll have a flotation device around us just in case we fall. But you have to have a little bit of flexibility and agility to do that. And then to shimmy down through the hatch, down 4 little ladder rungs, into the personnel sphere of the limiting factor. And so that will be, I'll have to go back to my days of climbing trees as a little girl in Hawaii and swinging from banyan vines, get that nice playful childlike mode, because we have to do a little climbing to get in there. but that will be really cool, but it's not something that I would want to do unprepared. And then during the dive, we'll have around 96 hours of oxygen available at an average breathing rate. There's nothing unusual about that. We won't have to have anything, we won't have to wear a spacesuit or anything. In fact, I can show you my jumpsuit is over here, and it's just like a NASA jumpsuit. We have to wear the jumpsuits because they're flame retardant, just in case there is a fire in the submersible, but we're not anticipating that at all, of course. But another thing about this is that at such extreme depth, the temperature is going to be around 45 degrees for the entire time that we're on the bottom. And it'll take about 4 hours to get down, depending on how much time we can be efficient on the bottom with surveying with our sonar and looking around and taking video and photographs. We hope to be down on the bottom anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, and that's 2 to 4 hours at 45 degrees Fahrenheit, because there's no power available to heat the submersible. So it's not going to be like Club Med, comfy cozy. So you have to be able to withstand that, and we'll have gloves and hats, and make sure that we stay warm. And then it'll be another 4 hours to come back up. So that is a 12-hour dive. So that's a long day. And so basically, with all of that in mind, again, I've just been trying to get into as good a physical condition as possible, and staying clear of COVID. They have strong COVID protocols, of course, and doing the upper body work with my physical trainer, flexibility with him. He comes to see me twice a week, and doing the cycling for the cardiovascular and the leg strength. So yeah, that's the deal there. And everybody does that, because we rely on each other at sea. So everybody has to be at a good level of fitness and stay COVID free. we have to get tested. I have to get tested with the PCR test right before I leave. Then I have to be tested again before I get on the ship. We have to be masked in all of the indoor air, even though we're at sea. We're gonna. I'm planning on keeping my mask on unless I'm out on deck. We won't have to be masked in the submersible. Thank goodness.
Right.
Anyway.
Can you talk a little bit about just kind of a follow-up question, like where you're going to be flying to, when you're going to board the ship, the journey out to Challenger Deep, just to give us a kind of a context as to how you'll get there before you go down?
Yeah, and maybe the overall goal of the mission as well. Like, why are we sending our precious Dawn Wright to the bottom of the ocean? Why?
Well, in terms of the why, it is for this milestone as the first Black person, but it's also our goal, our mission is to create or is to use a prototype full ocean depth sonar. This is a single beam sonar that will be attached to the bottom of the submersible to allow us to do a map. Now the ship already has the area mapped with their multi-beam sonar, but we hope to do a more detailed map to show the structural extent, the morphology of Challenger Deep, which will be, I think, a first. And the type of map that we're going to do is a sonar map that will record not only the travel time of the pulses that come from, actually this is a single beam sonar, the one strong pulse that goes down to the seafloor comes back to give a depth, but also the strength of that return, which will give us an image. So we're hoping to come back with the first higher resolution acoustic image of Challenger Deep, and specifically of the western and central pools. Challenger Deep is a region. It's a region that's made up of what they call three pools. There's the eastern pool. That's the deepest little indentation within Challenger Deep. It's the deep within the deep. And that's where people go to set their records. So that's where James Cameron went, for instance, when he built his own submersible. This is James Cameron, Avatar James Cameron, the film director. He he became the third person to descend to Challenger Deep after Piccard and Walsh. And he broke their record by descending into that eastern pool. And others have been to that eastern pool. That's where everybody likes to touch down and then come back up if they're not doing a science mission. We're doing more of a science mission. So we're going to go to the central and the western pools. We're going to go a little further and try to survey those so that we can understand the morphology of that area a little better. Those are not visited nearly as often. So we're going to try to make this backscatter image of the central and the western pools. And this will also be the proof of concept for this new full ocean depth sonar that will be attached to the sub. That sonar has not been successfully used for finer scale mapping below 6,000 meters, is my understanding. That sonar was designed to find shipwrecks. In fact, the mission prior to ours is finding World War II shipwrecks in that part of the Pacific, and I believe they're using that same sonar. Now, with that major mission, we are going to use ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Online. So this is where Esri comes in, because we have a team of data scientists at Esri that will post-process the positional data of the sub and the backscatter imagery that we actually collect, and they're going to post-process that in ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Image in order to give us this map. And we're going to share all of our data in the ArcGIS Living Atlas of the World so that everyone can use it, can access it and can use it. Of course, Caladan Oceanic already contributes data to Seabed 2030, so we will contribute our sonar data to Seabed 2030 as well. So that's the mission. Now, now in terms of why I'm going down, it's to fulfill that mission, and it's also a dream of mine to get to this deep spot. So my colleagues at Esri are teasing me a little bit. They're, my hashtag or my handle is always Deep Sea Dawn. So now it's Deeper Sea Dawn, according to them. And another thing that we'll be doing is sharing as much as we can for everyone. So we will have wonderful story maps. My colleague Victoria Phillips, who is our industry marketing manager for corporate science communications, and I believe she helped you with a BIMS story map before. She and her colleagues have put together a fantastic site full of resources. So I'll give you the link for that. And part of that on that site, they have devised these postcards. These are electronic postcards, dispatches, where I'll be communicating with them, and then they'll be creating these fantastic resources on this site. These postcards will track the whole journey. So first of all, in terms of my trip, I'm going to Guam. We'll be meeting the ship in Guam. Guam is only a couple hundred nautical miles northeast of Challenger Deep. So that is the best place to start. I'll get on the ship there. I think I board on July the 9th. We leave on July the 10th. We will get on site at Challenger Deep on July the 12th, where I'll make the dive. And then after that, we will be proceeding to the next deep trench along that line of trenches, which is the Yap Trench and the Palau Trench. And two amazing gentlemen will make the dive into Yap and Palau. Cesario, I need to. We just call him Cesario. I don't want to pronounce his last name without practicing how to pronounce it correctly. But he's a Micronesian navigator, legendary navigator. If you've heard of Nainoa Thompson, who is a legendary Hawaiian navigator and is currently on board the Hawaiian voyaging canoe Hokulea, which reenacts the voyages of the ancient Hawaiians across the Pacific and has proved how the ancient Hawaiians were able to do that. Anyway, Cesario is like a Nainoa Thompson. He's going to dive into the Yap Trench. And then if you follow the Western Pacific marine conservation activities, and really Tommy Remengesau is a global figure now. He used to be the president of Palau, and he has been part of the global fight for climate justice for people of color everywhere, certainly for Polynesians and for Micronesians, but for people everywhere, people in island nations. As the former president of Palau, he will dive into the Palau Trench and see that part of his country. And then we will finish the expedition and come into Palau. And so I'll be on Palau for another couple of days. We have a CBS News film crew who will be with us. They're getting on the ship also in Guam, will be with us at sea. And then we'll be doing some stories in Palau as well. And they're going to be focusing a lot on Cesario and Tommy Remengesau, President Remengesau, as well as telling a story about my dive. But Victoria's site will issue postcards with little maps and little pictures and maybe tweets or little dispatches from me. So that's how you can follow. That's how you can follow this whole adventure. And it's called Mapping the Deep -story.hub.arcgis.com. Mapping the Deep -story.hub.arcgis.com.
Yeah, this is so awesome. I'm just over here in awe. So my next question, and you mentioned this a couple times, that you are the first Black person to go to the Challenger Deep. Not Black woman, not even Black person. So ever. Um, how does that feel? Like, how does knowing that make you feel? How does that feel to be in this space? And then you also just said this is a dream of yours. So was it, I'm sure your dream was just to go, but how does it feel to be going and then going as the first Black person?
Yeah, I never thought I would go to Challenger Deep. I mean, I was thrilled to go to my thesis area on the East Pacific Rise. That was a mile and a half deep, and that was a fantastic feeling, and it helped me to finish my PhD dissertation and all of that. And it was just wonderful. I always dreamed of being a pirate and going to sea and having all these adventures, but whew, this is better than the books. This is better, y'all, than the books. All of our adventures, we read all kinds of things, but you can live your adventures out, and this is what I want young and old Black people to know. I often think of what Mae Jemison, what she might have experienced being the first Black woman in space. The impression I get from her is that she just did her science, did her engineering, enjoyed it, did it to the best of her ability, and it just happened to be that she was the first Black woman to do it. I think that's the same for me. I'm just having fun and doing everything the best that I can do, and it's wonderful to be Black too. I'm so proud to be Black. I'm so proud to be who I am, and I'm proud of my story, and I'm proud of how my mother raised me, and I'm proud of my mother. And so that just goes along with it. That's the icing on the cake. But I've been thinking a lot about Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's really been weighing on my mind actually through all this. And we know about the tough Senate nomination process that she went through to become the first Black woman appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the way that she conducted herself with the grace and the humor and the dignity, unflappable, that was so inspiring. And we are not going through that same experience as she went through, but we all have microcosms of that. We have all been through some aspect of that. Hers was just blown out tremendously because it was a Senate nomination process with this particular Senate, with the individuals who are in that body. But we can all take so much from that, and I'm taking a lot from that and thinking about her, and I'm inspired by that tremendously. And I think for it's hard to be first as a way to inspire and encourage others. But it's important. It's important, especially for little children, for young people, for early career academics and scientists. It's important for all of us to see that this is possible. Something like this is possible for them. It's possible for you. It does not have to be off limits because we are Black. And so I want this to be seen as something that people can aspire to one day if they so desire. The journey to it is going to be circuitous. It's going to be lots of ups and downs. I mean, my journey cannot be someone else's journey, but your journey is going to be your journey. And it may not be to Challenger Deep, but it may be to a new species on a coral reef that you discover. It may be going to a place in Florida where you are treated with respect by hotel staff, and your young people are able to do their field program without any intervention or any harassment. And, these are all journeys. So from that standpoint, I'm very mindful of that. And I go back to Mae Jemison, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, to my mother, to my graduate school advisors, to all the people who made it possible for me to get this far in my career and to be in a position to make this historic dive. There's another part of this that going back to space, to full circle to outer space. I don't know if you guys follow Cyan Proctor. Cyan Proctor, she's one of my Twitter friends. We have not met yet. We both drive Mini Coopers. we know that. We communicate by Twitter, and of course, I hope everyone knows that in September of last year, she became the first Black woman to pilot a spacecraft, the Crew Dragon, as a civilian astronaut on the SpaceX Inspiration 4 mission. Unbelievable. And she's also a poet and a wonderful artist, and she's a community college geology professor, and overall just a fantastic person. So I'm going to be, and I appreciate her tweeting even today about my upcoming dive. I'll be taking her book of poetry down into the submersible with me, if I'm allowed to, because there are very strict weight limitations. But regardless, I will be taking her poem. She wrote a poem about Challenger Deep called Seeker. And so once we reach the bottom, I'm going to read her poem into the camera as part of our little celebration for having made it to that important milestone. And of course, to dedicate the dive to Dr. Ford, to her, to BIMS, to my mother, to a few others. So that's my thinking right now on that.
That's beautiful. I mean, I got like goosebumps just now. I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Well, I'm proud of all of you too. I love how BIMS has grown. Your products are excellent. The videos, the what you do on Instagram and on Twitter, it's so on point. It's so professionally done. It's so timely. It's so beautifully done. There's so many fantastic people that you are featuring, and the T-shirt fits perfectly.
Yes, come on, Bill Strip. Yeah.
Thank you also for this as well. I haven't had a chance to open this, but this did arrive. So
Oh, I'm glad.
thank
Oh, yeah,
you.
you have to open it. Yeah. There's some goodies in there. Camille, you want to move to the next?
Yeah, I mean, you talk so much about your experience, but one of the things that is so interesting is like, being able to have a dream and like you said, you're actually living it out now, right? That's so exciting. And I know you said you're just excited about just being there and being able to go on the limiting factor, but are there specific things, especially when you get down to the deep challenge, the Challenger Deep, that you're most excited to see or hoping that you're able to see or take a part in once you get down to the depth?
Yes, we have the mission to do the mapping, and I think we're going to have to lift off the seafloor a bit so that we get the maximum beam forming from the sonar in order to do that. So that that means that we will hope to see things in the water column as well. But normally, when you set down on the submersible, that's when you can see things such as and even at these tremendous depths, there's life down in Challenger Deep. So I am hoping, I'm not a biologist, but I'm hoping to see amphipods. I think that the deep sea marine biology experts, they always see these deep sea amphipods, the large shrimp-like creatures in these trenches. So I hope to see them. But it's really amazing because I think in March of 2020, while diving in the Mariana Trench, not necessarily all the way down to Challenger Deep, but in the trench, within the limiting factor, Dr. Alan Jameson, who is the Caladan Oceanics chief scientist, he discovered a new species of amphipod. Sorry, I haven't had my coffee yet. And it's a new species. It's called Erythrines plasticus. Erythrines plasticus, the genus and the species name, because of the man-made plastic that's already contaminating its body. So this is a clarion call. It's a cautionary tale. It's evidence of how plastics are pervasive, microplastics, especially in our oceans, that this is something that we absolutely have to fix. Anytime you find a new species that already has plastic in its tissues, I mean, that says it all. But I'm in love with Dumbo octopi, the cute little octopus creatures, the translucent. I really hope I get to see a Dumbo octopus. That's my wish. It would be awesome to see anglerfish or sea cucumbers, maybe a snailfish, as well as the amphipods. But our mission is mainly the geology, and it's interesting because given the weight limitations of the limiting factor, you can only take the sonar, or there's a big robotic arm that is used for sampling rocks and creatures. Or if you've got a device such as another sampler, something that you can, a piece of equipment that you need to pick up, you have the robotic arm for that. We won't be able to take that because we are going to do the sonar survey. So we had to choose between those two. But something else that is really cool is that in advance of our descent, the pressure drop sends these landers. The landers are little cages that have cameras on them as well, navigational devices, pingers. So they send, and even a little sample box. So if you pick up something with the limiting factors arm, you can navigate over to the lander and put it into the box. And of course, all of that is taken up. We use the lander to navigate our position because the lander is taken over the side, put over the side. Its descent is tracked very carefully, as straight a descent as possible, so that when it does reach the bottom, the ship has an accurate position, an X, Y, and Z of the lander. There are a couple of those that they will put over the side, and then we ping against the landers so that they can triangulate our position and our track relative to the known position of the landers. The landers also are wonderful attractors of beautiful marine life at that depth as well, and that the landers can take video and photographs of something that comes into its vicinity. So that will also be really, really cool.
Yeah, that will be cool. So sadly, we're getting close to the end. Maybe I'll ask a question. Camille, you can finish it up. But going a little bit off script, I want to know, are you scared? Like, is there any piece of you like,
no. No, you can't be scared. I'm not scared at all. I'm excited. I was talking to our chief medical officer. Esri is a software company. We have a chief medical officer, Esty Garrity. She's wonderful. She is an MD, I think she does internal medicine by specialty. But she's also a fantastic leader of our health and human services team. And she was talking, we were both talking about compartmentalizing, like when she is doing a doctor doing surgery or even telling patient bad news, you compartmentalize that so that you can do that, so that you can complete your mission. For me, I never think about 16,000 pounds per square inch or any of that. You have to put your complete trust in the scientific equipment that you are in or that you're using. And so I got to see the limiting factor in refit also, where they took everything apart. So I got to see the innards of the submersible. And I think Victoria and her crew, they've already tweeted out from GIS and Science, at GIS and Science on Twitter. They've tweeted out, they'll be tweeting videos from the time that we visited the limiting factor in San Diego, it was all in pieces, and so I've seen how the submersible, what the parts are, how it's put together. They take every precaution. You can't be claustrophobic though. If you have claustrophobia or that type of condition, that does prevent you from going into the submersible, because you've got to be able to be calm and able to do your work for 12, it's anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. But I'm not scared. It's sort of like if you get up in an airplane, that's at 30,000 feet. That could be frightening for some people. That's frightening, but for most of us, that's something that we take for granted, and we trust in the technology of the aircraft, and away we go. So that's the way that I look at it.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Wright, Dawn, for joining us today. We are sending all the well wishes for when you get to Guam, when you get on the ship, and when you, of course, are in the limiting factor, making the journey down to Challenger Deep. We just want to thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you follow Dr. Wright at Deep Sea Dawn. And make sure you follow us, BIMS, Black and Marine Science, on Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much.